Good morning. Okay. I think all of the rank 4s are worth it. And then we should filter based on the tags. Let's see. Blade was moderately annoying, but I don't know if he's worth throwing in as a defender. Warriors trying for a fight immediately. Good morning. I need to clean up some wires under my desk. Nope, didn't click that. All right. I could use some more here. We'll come back in a little bit. Yeah, Brennan, absolutely. Are you already in there? Let me take a look. I definitely missed you. Yeah, can you post in the MCOC general chat so I can see you quickly, and then I'll go ahead and add you. I'm finding it a little bit tricky otherwise. Oh God, I want so many champions in here. Um, because like I need Bullseye. Okay, who do I drop? I probably have too many mutants. But I also kind of want to have Guardian. I kind of want all the mutants I have. I think we run for this, or run with this for a little bit. Yeah, Callum. If you are not in the Overlook, thank you, Brennan. Go ahead and add that right now. Okay, you should be good, Brennan. Um, yeah, maybe reach out to me on Discord, Callum. I'll get you in there. I'm at D_L_L. Okay. I think I'm going to run with this for now, and we'll see how it goes. I should change the name of the deck. I haven't in a while, but I went a whole season where I actually played not doing this. Um, yeah, why not? Oh, yeah, that works great, Callum. I'll go ahead and add you right away. Okay. Get you up with chat. Hey, Bart. Welcome. Welcome, Chi-Town. Okay, so Warrior, there's a number of things with Falcon. I'm not going to answer the second part of your question because he's still up for rebalance, and my policy is to generally not comment on that stuff because people run with it. But as far as why I think people aren't playing him that much, there are kind of two broad things. Maybe three. Yeah, let's go with three. So, number one, he came out shortly before Spider-Woman, and our community has repeatedly shown that they are unable to process two characters in the same class at all close to each other having like both having value, right? That has been a very consistent problem. Um, a very good example being Leader and Nefaria. There are still people who insist that Leader cannot possibly be good because Nefaria ate his lunch or whatever. And just like, that's not how the game works. But if you are trying to process everything in terms of who wins and who's number one and do everything in a linear stack ranking, then yeah, you're going to miss some stuff. And I think that is a fair amount of the Falcon thing. Factor number two, he is an Enchantress counter. He definitely is, right? We're assigning him quite a bit this season, and him being able to fully shut off her reflection with even if you get bad intercept RNG is so important on this map with the extra damage boosts. Like, he is a good Enchantress counter, but he's an Enchantress counter that doesn't handle miss. And miss is not the most important thing for Enchantress. I don't think that's actually true. But miss is the most salient challenge that Enchantress has. It's the thing that a lot of people focus on, right? And a lot of the other benefits that Falcon has for Enchantress are a little more subtle. The easier intercepts, the complete lack of Mystic Dispersion, and thus the way that he dodges her floor on her ability power rate. There are a lot of cool little things in there that help him against her and against other Mystics that are not as obvious as Miss failed, right? And so I think that that is kind of leading to people overlooking the very real utility he has. Which brings me nicely to my third point, which is that he is more of a utility focused character than a damage nuke, and just the community is never great about processing those properly, right? All right, let's get rolling. Hey, Pablo. And don't worry, those Callum and Brendan were trying to get in on the members channel on the Discord. Ah, okay, never mind. Gotcha. Welcome, Mookie. Yeah, the AI manipulation on the slow is very powerful. Hey, Bill. Welcome. Tuma's mildly annoying, but I have answers. Null might be more of a problem. Is there anyone that I, like, really don't want them to have? Maybe Bill? Juggernaut. That works. Black Hole asked, forgot exactly, how does rebalance work for buff champions again? They are subject to it, but we may get to them in a less even cadence, I shall say. Y'all saw me not draft Apocalypse, right? That just happened. Okay. Did I look away or something? Probably should have taken Serpent there. I don't know. I'm thinking ahead to some of the matchups I haven't done yet. Hey, easy. Nice, Jack. Yeah, that's what I thought. C'est la vie. I think Bullseye does more than future Ant-Man for us here. I was also just considering taking Shocker. Yay, Alfie. I didn't see any clear Atom targets. So not this time. Alright, let's just start with it. I'm glad, Misako. Okay, I know this is going to be slower, but they don't have a great option for her, and so I think I'm just going to bypass the Purify for the bleed. Hopefully Venom takes enough damage. Oh wait, you have one. That is pretty funny. Ah! My finger, like, bounced off the screen. Like, it's just 100% my fault I missed the parry. Yeah, like we could have ended that a little bit north of 90, probably a little faster. Like that's not good for a rank 4 punching down, but that's serviceable. Hey, Aiden, welcome. Yeah, I think I'm generally with you, Easy. I didn't like the movie, but I didn't think it was actively bad so much as it was not the right story for this time. And then there were also some flaws. Lag. Holy. Thanks, Eno. Welcome, Slinger. I really need to set up some kind of bot commands. Does blank need dupe would be one of the most popular ones. Yeah, Thunderbolts was great. I was surprised to see the article saying that it was a financial failure until I saw that it cost more than Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and that's a choice. Or maybe it wasn't Multiverse of Madness. Maybe it was just the first one. But it's still, like, cost way too much frickin' money for something with that few lasers. Yeah, I wasn't impressed by it, Slinger, but I don't know. I don't think that setting the bar by incredible set pieces that were absolutely in their right moment is particularly fair or smart, you know? I wish it had been better, but not worth spending much energy on. Nice, Bart, congrats. Well, reshoots and also CGI, Aiden. I personally haven't seen them, so grain of salt here, but I heard that there were a lot of shots of the sets that looked nothing like what made it into the actual movie. And, when you're shooting Guardians of the Galaxy and there needs to be a nebula in the background, that makes sense. When you're in New York and it's an expensive office building is fine, that's kind of stupid. No, Elfie, because there's nothing wrong with Apocalypse's signature ability. It's one of the most powerful questing abilities in the entire game. It's just not good in Battlegrounds. And people need to get the heck over that. We're gonna leave that right there, Slinger. You used a few red flag phrases in that. That's fine. That's not who I wanted, but that's fine. It's okay. If we were at a bar, I'd unpack it, but we're on stream. Little different. Oh yeah, if that's the conversation, Bart, Brave New World was significantly better than Multiverse of Madness. That's just a bar that's rolling around on the floor. I hated that movie so much. Oops, I was slow there. I was expecting him to do a little better. That's okay. Oh, it's because I'm not pushing to Special 2. If I was pushing to Special 2 and then punishing it, would be getting the unblockable? That would have been significantly more damage, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I'm not with you there, Alfie. Being able to repeatably heal, like, almost 25% of your overall health is very strong. And it's the kind of thing that's just, like, objectively strong. It's fine if you don't value it. That doesn't make it bad, right? Time to do something dumb. But there is a lot to catch up on in chat. Take that in a minute. Woo, that was close. That was my fault. Why did I do that? Yeah, that was bad. That's fine. How'd we do? I was willing to throw that round. Yeah, I thought there was a chance of that. Okay. Alright. We're going to talk about defenders today. Honestly, the conversation is kind of short. This may come across as glib or dismissive to those of you who haven't heard me talk about this before, just as a warning. But I have talked about this many, many times. And so I am not going to do the full spiel. So the short version is simply that the game needs new defenders, and they need to challenge you even if you are skilled, right? That is just how this game works. Like, this is not a single player game. A defender that you can fully skill your way around is not enough to develop the RPG landscape, right? We need new characters to counter things in existing defenders. That does not work if the threats on defenders can be fully played around, right? That is also not healthy for the mid and lower tier players, because if the answer to everything is get good, then they can't get a new character that answers that character. They just have a bunch of people telling them to learn the special decks a million times, and that's not a particularly fun experience for them. Moving on, a large reason that we need new defenders, and I've kind of already touched on this, is that we need targets for new attackers. The example that I like to use is a lot of people were very excited when Gladiator came out, but Gladiator did not have the clearest targets in the tech class, in part because there wasn't really a strong tech defender for him to go after at the time. And so you saw a lot of people go, I mean, there were some people who just said Gladiator's trash because he didn't have 6 immunities, and those people aren't particularly worth responding to. But there were also a lot of people who said, I can see that Gladiator's fine, but I don't see a real need to add him to my roster, and they were upset about that because they really wanted to like the character, right? That is the poster child for what we need to avoid, right? If a new character comes out and you're excited about them from a lore perspective, you want to be excited, like maybe you're excited about them from an art perspective, even if you never heard about them before, you want to be excited about their abilities. That means they need to have value. And that value can either come from them answering something that somebody else doesn't, or it can come from them just being better at things than other people that came before. The most obvious way to do the latter is to just give them more health or more damage than previous champions, and that is called power creep. Specifically, I would like to call it like linear power creep, and that is not great for the game. There are a lot of character creators that have gone with straight linear power creep, and they tend to die faster. You want what's called orthogonal power creep, which is not just numbers, right? You want new abilities. And for those new abilities, those new, as we call them, keys to have value, there need to be locks that you want to open with them. That means more defenders. All of that is like inarguable, right? From there, we're probably just having discussions on tuning, right? How many defenders? How hard are the locks? How much can be played around with skill? And those kinds of things are discussions that we have internally too, and we talk about it a lot because there's not an objective right answer, no matter what anybody on YouTube tells you. And so, like, we can chat about some specifics, but I just want to reiterate that again. This is not the kind of conversation where there is an objective, this is the correct threshold, this is what Kabam should be doing. Anyone who says that with authority doesn't know what they're talking about. They can say that this feels bad to me, that's fine. But anyone who tells you that there is objectively an answer here, and that they know it better than the company that spent a lot of time trying to find that balance, is not being particularly either fair or genuine in the conversation, depending on how much we assume they really understand about it. I do understand where Aiden's coming from on the class thing. That is definitely arguable, and it would be basically impossible for us to have a conversation about which classes need defenders most right now, because we know who's coming out for the rest of the year and most of 2026, and you don't. And that's just, we can't have that conversation with that gap in information, right? Okay, moving on. Yeah, people are taking shots at Multiverse of Madness, which is appropriate and fair. Hey Joey, how's it going? I do not personally think that Eternal should have been a TV show before a movie, Bill, because I think that if we had a limited series TV show where each episode focused on a different Eternal, people just wouldn't have watched it because they wouldn't have really cared about the characters. And then we would have gotten to a movie, and then people would have been like, well, I didn't watch the TV show. Who the heck are these characters? And it would have had less explanation, and it probably would have been shorter and tighter, but I think it actually would have done worse. I understand it's a very popular take, but I don't personally agree with it. I liked Eternals as it was. I liked Shang-Chi quite a bit. I understand there was a lot of CGI at the end, but that's fine. I do agree the chemistry between Seema and Aquafina was fun. Where did I end at last season? I think in Low Quantum? I honestly forget. Hey user, how's it going? You say orthogonal? Yeah, I got that from GDC, the game design conference, because that was how somebody talked about their level design, thought process. They said that like they really, really wanted things to be to embrace orthogonal design because that allowed interactions to happen more organically, right? When you have a bunch of differences between characters and or enemies, it's a different kind of game. But when you have a bunch of differences that are more than numbers, when they have abilities that do completely different things, then like yes, you can plan for lock and key type interactions, but there's also inevitably going to be interactions you don't see coming as a designer um, that people discover organically, and that adds depth to the game that you cannot design from the beginning. And that is a good thing, right? Even if it's known by the time it ships, that's the kind of emergent complexity that makes a game deep and rich, and I think it's what keeps a lot of us here. Like it's we talk a lot about the game being too complex these days, and there's certainly something to that, especially as a barrier to entry for newer players. But I think it's also very important to remember that that complexity is the point in a lot of ways, right? Because complexity is a synonym in this case for richness. And that richness and depth is why we have all stuck around thus far. Hey, Bubby. Yeah, it absolutely just is part of the game, Pablo. I understand not liking the pressure. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel it too. I don't have everyone. I can't rank everyone up, but that's okay. I don't put in the time and or money to be at the top for Battlegrounds, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, independent of each other is probably the part that I would hone in on there, Joey. Hey, Stig. Morning, Akbar. Yes, Alex, I did see that. It looks interesting. Oh, this poor soul. I wanted to spend time with Fighter Z, which, if I'm remembering correctly, is the same company, but I could not get it to work on my computer. Maybe it's time that I try again, because I liked the game when it did work for about 2 days for me. And then I lost a hard drive and it went away, and I was so sad. Maybe it's time to try again. Fighting games are something I tend to bounce off of because it takes so much time to really get good at even one character. And I don't particularly like the feeling that I'm button mashing, but I don't know. I also enjoy them, right? I have a long history of enjoying fighting games. Some of my fondest memories from middle school are staying up late and playing Soul Calibur with a buddy. Soul Calibur 3, before anyone asks. And they're obviously useful for pulling some concepts from for a game like this, but difficult for me to really dive in because this isn't really a fighting game. Those are the kinds of questions that we don't ask, Aditya, because I couldn't answer if there were. I feel that, Pablo. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a good one, Masakre. There are valid discussions to be had around the tuning of the problem. You just have to start with the understanding that it is tuning. Oh, don't even start, Jack. At some point, we need attackers. Don't make me open Khonshu's Ankh and go down the list. Y'all have gotten so many attackers in the last year. uh, I just have to laugh at that one, dude. I do still get to see them, Pablo. Morning, Ghost. Um, because I always keep the YouTube studio page up in the background, behind OBS. So I'm generally reading chat on YouTube. The OBS display is mostly for playback. But that also lets me keep an eye on like concurrent views and yeah, trends in like how many people are here, that kind of thing. We may get to the point where we need another serpent, Bill. Like, he very much served his purpose. He's an outlier for sure, but I had a job to do, and I think I did it. Oh, then no, I just don't agree with that, Jack. No, you don't need super broken attackers. Balance isn't the same thing for offense and defense. That's a very common, I would say, misconception, but I think some people understand it and just argue it anyway. Sorry, 1 second. Making sure. Okay. All right. For those of you who haven't heard my spiel on this before and are surprised by me saying that, and or who think that I'm doing some kind of cop out, if a defender is really, really strong, then to make them less dominant, you need to ship, like, depending on what game mode you're talking about, 2 to 6 counters, let's say. That's kind of a rough range. If an attacker is too strong, let's say Juggernaut, then you can have every defender for an entire year intentionally shut them off. And let's say that's, I don't know, as high as 15 characters. That's 5% of the total champion pool right now. You've made a drop in the bucket. You have done almost nothing to make them less powerful. Overpowered attackers and really strong defenders are not equivalent. Anyone who is directly comparing Serpent and Hercules is missing the point. And I think I addressed Black Hole's comment there. It's been a while since I've said this, so maybe it needed to be discussed again. Hey, Odie, how's it going, man? Thanks for being a member. Hope you're doing well. It is possible we see Claire in the future, for sure. Um, yeah, I'll leave that there. I'm probably gonna have to go soon. I don't want to open a can of worms. What do I think is the challenge that keeps people from distinguishing between tuning versus mechanic or oversimplified fairness freshness? Honestly, that's a very good question, Mookie, and the answer is probably going to offend some people, so I apologize in advance. But I think a lot of people, myself very much included at times, have a tendency to, because they are rational and thoughtful in so many aspects of their lives, and I do want to give that credit to a lot of people, there's kind of this assumption that you can bring to a new topic that you are being rational, right? And so if something happens and you don't like it, if it frustrates your expectations, if it causes you stress, you expect a certain amount of tension in games, but if there's more tension than you were ready for, it's very easy to default to the notion that that is a problem, that that is a design mistake, that somebody somewhere messed up and that is why you are unhappy, right? And because us as, like, we as humans are reasoning beings, the next step is often reasoning backwards from that and explaining why that's a mistake. And generally, when you do that reasoning backwards process, you will default to systematic things. It's not supposed to be this way. The goals are supposed to be different. Those are the kinds of, like, broader conclusions that you're generally quicker to come to in the moment. You kind of have to slow yourself down to put yourself in a different headspace to go, okay, I understand why they did this. I understand that if I really think about this, I may actually be on pretty much the same page as the person who made these decisions for, like, almost all of the goals. But they came to a slightly different conclusion, and it's either tuning or they have a couple extra goals that I don't. And it's not that that requires, like, a higher order thought process or anything, right? You don't have to be smart to think that way. You just have to kind of stop and interrupt your first mental response to something you don't like and ask yourself, is it possible that this actually is consistent with my values and we're closer than I think? And that is a skill that has to be honed, right? And I'm not perfect at it, but it is also a skill that I get a lot of practice at in playtests. um, to the extent with, I'll share this with y'all. Kabam Mimic, who's done a lot of our bosses recently, he designed Glycon, um, he designed Ares, and Nameless Grandmaster, right? So I've been in a lot of playtests against Mimic's defenders in the last 2 years. He has said that his personal razor for like my feedback in those kinds of playtests is that a boss is in roughly the right spot for difficulty if I'm like a little annoyed. If I am actually angry, then they're probably too hard or they're doing something that feels unfair, right? But on the flip side, if I'm not having any negative reactions, they're probably too easy. And I think that's a pretty fair read of me, right? Because I'm still having those first reactions. I'm still having those. I didn't like that. And then I have to figure out why I didn't like that. And for a boss to be about the difficulty we're going for, I think I have to have enough negative reactions that some of them are still sticking around as I'm processing the others, if that makes sense. I don't know. This stuff is tough. What are my thoughts on Torch coming? I'm going to be completely honest. I'd probably prefer if he wasn't for a little while longer. But that's kind of another truth of game design is that games can end up boring if everything is perfectly balanced all the time. And this is not an excuse for players to go, then let us have the broken stuff. No, I don't trust y'all to tune it. But what that does mean is that sometimes it can be the right move for the game overall for us to do something that I might feel more comfortable if we were not. And I think Torch kind of falls in that category, right? Um, there are ways to slow him down. There will be more in the future. He's definitely very strong. But I think he is most problematic in the part of the game that has a ban button. And so for now, I can deal with it. Sorry, Pablo, that's funny. I'm not going to give you numbers on that, Ghost. I have given the team internally numbers. I've done quite a bit of work on this particular topic of the correct rate of tough defenders. I will continue to, but I don't want to give numbers that people will then quote. What I will say is that it is difficult to keep that rate steady because we are not fully within control of, we as in the character design team are not fully within control of when different classes show up exactly. It's also a conversation with Marvel and with live ops for when they do things like, hey, let's release Gallon. I'm not saying we didn't have input on that, but you get what I mean. Like, that was kind of a surprise, right? Like, we had 2025 planned out with X number of cosmics, and then Dark Phoenix and Gallon were kind of added to that, and that changes things. That's kind of my point. It is difficult to hold a rate even there. There's going to be some ebb and flow. And logically, I think that means that even if we are at roughly the right rate in the long run, there are going to be months where we are a little on the high side, and there are going to be months when we're a little on the low side. And unfortunately, I think the nature of this conversation is such that there are going to be a lot of people who think the months where I think of were actually on the low side is, quote, how it should be. And so then every other time is going to feel like we're on the high side. And that, yeah, that I think that's where some of the conversation comes from. It's tough. I don't need to stream in an hour. Probably not. I was just a little annoyed at Ares. So that's actually, yes. It's interesting because with bosses, playtesting bosses is such a particular mental exercise. I don't think I've ever talked about this, but like, I really have to mentally calibrate the fact that by the end of the first 1 hour playtest on a brand new boss, I have more exposure than a lot of players are ever going to get. Especially more thoughtful exposure, right? And by the time we ship a boss, I will have probably fought against that boss for more runs and more time than 99.999% of players ever will. And that means that I have more practice at things. I am getting more used to things. And so like I have to balance me getting better against how I think I would feel the first time I'm coming at something. And so like it's a really tough line to walk. I do think that I'm good at it, but it's honestly a lot of the a little annoyance at Ares comes from me going, I would not have been chill with that if this were my first few times. But I'm not that upset because I've been playing for a while and I therefore like by definition I've been getting the things that he's asking me to do down. It's tough. See, Ghost, I don't really buy that because people have been claiming that spending is really creating a divide now for like 5 years. We're gonna be fine. Yeah, exactly, Akbar. And honestly, like even for us, we have a by definition, we have a broader view than the player base, but we're still making educated guesses some percentage of the time too. We're going to make mistakes. See Kate's cold snap. I think I make fewer mistakes now than I do when I first started, but it's gonna happen. Yeah. And Easy touched on a big thing. Like, if people are spending regularly, they should have an advantage. They should be able to feel some kind of divide, or they will stop spending. And if they all stop spending, then none of us have this game anymore to keep up with, and then the lack of a divide doesn't matter. Thanks, Mookie. Big free to play won't like that. Yeah, big free to play are going to send the Pinkertons to knock on my door. You got to be careful. Jessica Jones and Weapon X have been decently relevant in the past, Ghost. And oftentimes they were harder paywalled than some of these recent characters. I mean, it's a complicated discussion, but I think we're doing a decent job, right? Like some of the best counters to Dark Phoenix are very widely available mystics, right? Hood's been out for a long time. We gave out a serpent counter for free with Isophene. Like it's you can't just focus on how spenders are getting more. Non-spenders are getting more too. Hey, Safa. I don't know if it's an option, but I would like I would like you to not feel like it would be the wise choice. Let's put it that way. How's it going, man? Yeah, I'm also looking forward to 7-star read. I don't really think that's true, Ghost. Like, I think you're being a little revisionist with your history there. Does an Ice Fiend need the dupe to counter Serpent? I mean, first off, the dupe was also available for people who didn't spend money. I understand it required having some units, but pointing to that, Awakening Gems also exist. But I consider Isophene a Serpent counter even without turning off Death Immunity, right? Like the strong passive Wither and the regen to counter block damage is already doing real work. Yeah, exactly, Slinger. Everything will come. It'll just take a little longer. There are a lot of free-to-play players out there who have Jessica Jones or Weapon X or both. Probably not 7-star Jessica Jones. That would require being incredibly lucky. But, like, I think the last 11 years have shown that basically nothing stays paywalled forever in this game. And that just makes it a patience thing. Generally, it's something that we prefer to avoid as a primary target, Bleezy. Like, Prowler was more aimed at Domino, but especially when they're particularly nasty defenders, we're okay with doing that periodically. I don't think I have an answer for how often, but, like, it is something we talk about. All right, we are coming up on noon. This has been a really good discussion. I appreciate y'all quite a bit. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave things there. I know I only played 3 Battlegrounds matches, but you know, this is how my streams go sometimes. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and I will see you soon. Take care.